Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Talking Agriculture with Kevin Bislal. Kevin Bislal is a special guest. He was a difference maker movement, difference maker of the week. That was about 8 weeks ago. And he's also a former teacher aide at Penal Secondary School. He, of course, specializes in teaching agriculture. He also taught geography and environmental science at a private online school. He hails from Diamond Village in San Fernando, Trinidad. And he's here to talk to us about soil types. Now, this is a follow-up from the previous Talking Agriculture topics we spoke about before. We started with Karen Buscom from Tech for Agri. He gave us a general overview of agriculture. We also spoke with Kaylin Alexander, who gave us a rundown about how she transitioned from amateur gardener to a blogger online, from learning from YouTube. And as I say, she became innovative because of the pandemic, and she used that session to teach us what she knew, not only from YouTube but also from what she inherited from her mom. So today we turn to Kevin Bislal, who's going to tell us about soil types. Coming out of a question we got from our discussion with Kaylin Alexander, when she mentioned that you should not water any night, someone pitched down, with certain soil types, you can water any night. So we're going to clear that up a little bit today with Kevin. So here's Kevin.
Hello, good day, everyone.
Hey, Kev, how you doing? All is well?
Yeah, man, how you doing?
Things good, man. Looking forward to this session. I know you're excited about it. Sharing little tidbits throughout the week. Yeah. So how you want to start? Tell me.
Well, I know you introduced me, but I would just like to say a couple of words about myself again. I really do have a passion for teaching, and I hope that you all can, if not remember everything that we speak about today, you all can take away something from the presentation that I'm going to be presenting to you. So I guess we can get started.
Yeah, man. Very true.
Good. Are you seeing the presentation? Is it clear?
Not as yet. Let me help you there. Yep. Seen it.
Good. So today we are going to be talking about soils, and we'll be talking about the basic aspects of soil, which we all may have come across before, which are clay, sand, and silt. Now, soil is a medium in which plants are grown, and it consists of a mixture of organic matter, broken bits of rocks, and minerals. What we have to understand is that I know during the week you asked me a question if peat moss was a type of soil, but I want to make mention that peat moss is a soilless medium. A soilless medium because it does not have particles of soil, of rock intertwined in it. That is an enhanced growing medium with a lot of nutrients to give us better production. And for those who are involved in agriculture and geography, you would know that these are types of soils, but you will come across terms such as oxysoils, latosoils, histosoils, and altisoils. And these are soils that are found in different regions of the world. So we are in the equatorial region, and because of that, we will come across more soils like latisoils, which are branches of oxysoils. And that is why most of our soils are kind of reddish, orange, yellowish color. And you will see here that clay has a very orangish, reddish color. So that is a type of soil that we use in agriculture, as well as sand and silt. Now, loam is a combination of all of these different types of soils, which would provide for better agricultural production when you are heavily involved in commercial agriculture, or maybe even if you have a kitchen garden, you can use loam soils to help with better productivity. Now, what is the importance of soil? So it provides support for plants. How does this happen? This is because the roots will grab onto the soil and it will allow them to grow in a vertical direction. We also have nutrients, macronutrients such as NPK, which is nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. And these are all important for different aspects of the plants. We also know that soil filters water and it regulates the discharge of excess water to prevent flooding. So without soils, we would be basically like the ocean. We wouldn't have anything to support us and to help us to grow plants and for us to move about in our day-to-day activities. And another important factor of soil is that it acts as a buffer against pollution. So many of times even I am guilty of this. Sometimes, you're walking in the road and yeah, you just had a snack or a sweetie and, it happens, you happen to throw it out or it fall out from the trash can. And this is important because when the water flows into, let's say, areas that are used for agricultural purposes and such, the water is helping prevent this from going into the soil, these bits of litter and bottles, plastic materials, so that it would not cause harm to the environment. And also it acts as a buffer against pollution and it helps the water table. The water table is part of the ecology of the earth where water is stored underneath the earth that is accessible to plants and animals, that organisms that live within the soil. So we start off with clay soils, and this is a type of soil that is heavy and it remains wet in the rainy season and it can dry out during the dry season. There are spaces in clay soils that allow them to hold a high amount of water. So with clay soils, they have very small air spaces, which allows them to become very compact and they are held together. And these are some types of plants that thrive well in clay soils. We have cabbage, cauliflower, squash, pumpkin, hydrangeas, and these are things that we could use in our everyday life. Like we could have these in our kitchen gardens and such. So how do we improve clay soils? With any soil, it is important to add organic matter or compost. And this will give us the nutrients that is required by the soil to help it to grow properly and to have better produce and for the plants to be looking very nice and interesting. We can also add liming agents such as calcium to the soil. Why is this important? Because it causes clumping. Now you will notice with clay soils that it's very compact, it's very much held together. And this is why sometimes we get a lot of water that is not collected by the soil, but it remains on the surface of the soil. And the reason for adding these liming agents is to clump it so that the water can pass through the soil and reach the roots of the plants. If you don't know, if many of us don't know, is that a lot of times we don't know the pH of our soils. And the pH of our soils will help with the plants. It will help with the growth of the plants, what types of plants is essential for this type of soil. And pH is not a type of soil really, it is more a factor that affects the soil and it affects the growth of plants and how organisms react. And there is a simple test that you can do to identify how high or low your pH is, and we'll get to that shortly. Our second type of soil we'll be discussing is silt soils. And these particles are smaller than sand, but they are a little bit larger than clay. You would find that they feel very smooth and they will have a better water holding capacity than sand because they would not just go through the sand and will not be stored or used up by the roots. And this type of soil in particular is very much well suited for agricultural practices. And some of the plants that thrive in silt soils would be lettuce. We have onions, broccolis, and most vegetable crops will grow well here because this type of soil allows for proper drainage and it has a very good water holding capacity. How do we improve silt soils? So again, every soil type, we can use organic matter, organic compost. And compost is easy because we can all make our own compost at home. We can use the remains of our vegetables, like our pumpkin skins, our potato skins, and we can have a nice little compost going on so that we can use it not just to improve the soil itself, but to help with the production of our crops so that we can get nutrient rich crops, nutrient rich vegetables, so that we can be healthier, we can be organic, we can grow our produce organically. And the next way to improve soil is to avoid compaction. Now, because the particles are a little bit larger than clay, but they are smaller than sand, they can compact us the same way that clay soils do compact. So what we would want to do is we would want to minimize walking on the beds, and we would want to make the beds raised so that instead of making it flat on the ground, just flat, we can make it like with a curve on top so that it looks like an like a cushion, like, so we don't walk over it, to compact it even more. When we compact it even more, we will experience the same issues we would have with with clay soils, where the water will not be absorbed and it will not be drained properly, and it will cause a lot of issues like pest incidents and diseases within our plants. And lastly, well, second to lastly, we have sand soils, and these consist of particles that are weathered from rock, and it is considered one of the poorest soil types because the nutrients is low and the water holding capacity is low. If you have some sand and you pour some water in it, you will not really see the water remaining on the top of the sand. It will basically flow through the sand. And this is because the pore spaces or the air spaces are very big. They are minute to our eyes. But if you look at it through a light microscope, you will see the difference in the structure of it and how big these particles really are. But we have a lot of plants that can thrive in sandy soils, and these are carrots, lettuce, squash, tomatoes, peppers, and corns. And as Caribbean people, we like to, eat a lot of peppers. So if we have sandy soils, this would be a good medium for us to grow peppers and lettuce and stuff. Improving sandy soils. This again, we can supply the plants with organic materials. So again, like I mentioned, composting before, this is a good way to add nutrients to the soil to keep it very much active and very much fertile. Because with agriculture, every time you plant and you replant, you tend to use up the nutrients within the soil, and it does not get a lot of time to replenish itself because macronutrients take a little bit longer to form within the soils and to help the soil to become more, to retain its fertility. And another way of improving sandy soils is to use mulches. A lot of us know what mulching is, and many of us know of it because it is more of a cultural practice. It is passed on from, our grandparents may have been involved in agriculture, and they would mention what mulching is to us. So mulching really helps retain the water, and it helps with the water content. So like I said before, the water in sandy soils tends to go through faster than the other types of soil because of the species within them. So using mulches will help us now retain this moisture and this water content so that our plants do not become wilted and they may not die. The mulch will help them to absorb the water and use the water efficiently. Loam soils, and this is a balance of all three of the soils, which is sand, silt, and clay. Now, as a rule, if you are making your loam soils at home for agricultural purposes, it is important that all of the parts are equal. So you have the same amount of sand, silt, and clay. And this would in turn give you the perfect texture of the soil for growth. And it will also help with the water holding capacity and the nutrients that is needed by these plants to help them grow properly. And some of our plants that thrive in loam soils are tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, onions, eggplants. Um, in our home garden, most of us would want to grow things that we could use right away. So like tomatoes and peppers, maybe even eggplants. And these types of crops are um, very good with loam soil. So you will see they're looking very nice. They are very attractive to the eyes. They may be even tastier than if you grew it in like just a normal sand or a silt or even a clay soil. But with a combination of all, you get better producing crops. And we improve our loam soils the same way by using organic matter, as it would improve the soil's fertility. Another way to improve our loam soils is by adding a wetting agent. A wetting agent would help with absorbing the nutrients faster. So we can make a surfactant, which is a wetting agent, by using a tablespoon of dishwashing soap and a gallon of water, and we're going to spray this over our soils. Now, when we do this, it will help the soil to absorb the nutrients faster. It will help it to have a better water holding capacity as well, and the nutrients will be dissolved faster in the soil and be absorbed faster by the roots of the plants. Now, this is a simple home test that you can do to determine your soil types. So you can mix a handful of your soil in water and make it into small balls. When you do this, you leave it for a few minutes to dry. Then you would take, after this 2 minutes, you will take the ball and you would squeeze it. Now, if it crumbles and it feels very gritty and grainy, this is a sand soil. If the parts separate but it don't crumble and it feels smooth, it is a silt soil. But if it flattens and it continues without breaking, it feels very gluey, it feels like it's being held together perfectly, it is a clay soil. And this is a picture to indicate how these soils would react when you add water to them. So if you can see clearly, this picture, A and B, is showing us how this sand soil would look like when you wet it with water. The second picture, C, and the third picture, C, and then D, would show us how you do this test to indicate that it is a silt soil, and the last two pictures is indicating that it is a clay soil. Because I mentioned before that when you wet it with the soil and you squeeze it together, you would see that it's making like a ribbon. It does not break apart because it is held very tightly together. And I mentioned previously that we would touch on the pH of soils. So you can do a simple soil test at home to determine if your soil is acidic or alkaline. So for the alkaline test, we will add 2 tablespoons of salt in a bowl, and we're going to add a half cup of vinegar. If this mixture fizzes, then you have an alkaline soil. To test for an acidic soil, you place 2 tablespoons of soil in a bowl and moisten it with water. After it is moistened, you add a half cup of baking soda, and if it fizzes, you have acidic soils. And this is important. The pH of soil is important because it will help us select the plants that we would want to grow, and it will help us get better produce and improve yield in our production. So if it does not react to either test, then the soil is neutral, and it indicates that the microbial activity and the plant roots can easily access the nutrients when the pH range from 5.5 to 7. And this range is very good for plants to grow. It will not be susceptible to things like disease, pests, and the structure of the soil itself will be very good for these plants. And if we have a high or a low pH, it may result in the plants being deficient. It may have some toxic um, components in them as well, and you will see these in plants where the leaves are like sometimes they may be yellow or they may be brown, they may be brittle, but also take into consideration that with the pH we have to use the proper nutrients for our plants as well. So this is just a simple picture to indicate what our soil type will look like when we use the vinegar and the baking soda. So as you can see, the first line diagram is showing us that when you add the vinegar to the soil, it fizzes and you will see bubbles coming to the surface of the soil. And it will be the same thing with the baking soda test. And then we move on to soilless mediums. So Kyle, you were asking me this week about peat moss and if it is a type of soil. So this is where peat moss comes in, or peat for that matter. It is
No.
a soilless medium. So it doesn't really have rock material in it, or it is not weathered by rocks. So it's not really a component of soil. It is a soilless medium.
Got it.
And yes, so peat, perlite, coconut coir, cocoa coir, these are all organic ways to grow our plants. And it is necessary because they enhance the required nutrients required for these plants because it is organic. So it will compose of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and these are all nutrients that our plants would require for proper growth and, for better fertility as well. Lastly, we're going to mention what other mediums are.
Just going to show them a closer look to the peat, right?
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, guys, so this is what you mentioned before. A big question about this here. Very, very nutritious for the plants. I don't know if you all seen that. Try to shift it this way. Yeah, that's a bit. Peat. Right, very flaky. So you refer to it as a soil medium, right? Not soil.
No, it is a soil-less medium.
Soil-less medium. Got you.
Yes. Good.
Right.
So you can make your own peat at home. If you are like interested in that, I don't mind doing a little another presentation on how you can make your own compost and your little peat at home to help with the production of your plants and vegetables.
Where's all are we again? Yeah, man. Why not?
Yeah, we'll look into that. Yes. And then we have other mediums by which we can grow our plants. So have you ever heard of the term hydroponics?
Definitely. Yes.
Good. So hydroponics is growing plants with just water, whereas aquaponics is growing plants and animals. So I don't know if you see in this diagram to the underneath here, we are seeing some plants and then we're seeing like an aquarium with some fishes. So you can do a simple aquaponic system at home as well that you can produce your own crops, such as a lot of people go into lettuce production with aquaponics, and that is because the waste from the fish will be transformed to nitrogen and it will be absorbed by the plants to help them grow, and you see them with less incidence of pests and diseases. And a lot of us are going into aquaculture and aquaponics now, and it is very simple to do a setup for this. You can use materials around your home. There might be some stuff you'll have to purchase at an agri shop, like a pump or a filter to keep the water clean enough for the fishes to survive. And then we have another process that we can use called aeroponics. Now, aeroponics is a recent endeavor that is being researched by the agricultural specialists and such. And this is another medium to grow our plants. And aquaponics and hydroponics are important because we get plants that are not infested by pests and diseases, and it is healthier for us. Now, our initial investment in these structures is a little bit costly because you would want to ensure that you have a good system so that you can use it again and again. and it will be continuous for you to use. And you can use it even if you have like a lot of us are doing little market stalls in front of our house, vegetable stalls, just to get by because of the pandemic. And these are interesting things that we can look at. Again, these systems are not very difficult to develop. And again, if you require any sort of assistance, not just from me, but I'm sure there are a lot of agricultural experts out there that will be or may be willing to assist in these things. And we can look into this as well. This is a very nice initiative to look at for our younger generation because they are more involved in technology and most of them don't want to get dirt on their hands and stuff. So this is a good project for our kids to look at as well. And this brings
Some
us to
some
the
clean
end.
agriculture talk about it.
Yes, green agriculture. We can use the term green agriculture as well.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really affect the environment in a negative way. Like with the overuse of fertilizers, for example, we
Yeah.
tend to it leads to erosion and land degradation. And when rain fall and there is a lot of flooding, the land is cut out or it is washed away because of the overuse of these fertilizers, these inorganic fertilizers.
Right. And you keeping clean as well. Clean and green. Not too
Yes, clean
dirty.
and
Yeah.
green. Good. So
Nice.
this brings us to the end of my presentation. Like I said, it was just an introduction to
Yeah.
soils and how you can identify soils in your backyard or even your front yard. And yeah, I hope you all learned something from it today.
Yeah, that was very informative. We have some questions coming in here. And if that
Sure.
was the introduction, well, why is there so much to learn about agriculture and wool and soil types specifically?
Yes. People have this misconception that agriculture is just about planting a seed, watering it, and waiting for it to grow, basically. But
Yeah.
we have so many interdisciplinaries in agriculture that a lot of specialists go into. We have things like soil science, and this, what I touched on, is just the physical aspect of soil to determine what soil you have at home. Then we have soil physics, soil chemistry, which is more like cation absorption capacity, all of these things. It's very interesting. It's a very lovely field, and I love that I did agriculture because I wanted to gravitate from people saying, you shouldn't do agriculture. And then my family background is agriculture as well. Both my dad's parents and my mom's parents, they were involved in agriculture. And one day I hope to pursue genetics, agricultural genetics, and plants and animals. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of
Yeah. Way to go,
interdisciplinary.
Kev, man. So let me get into
Yeah,
some of the questions, right?
sure.
May not be able to go through all because there are quite a number. We have Miss Pear, and this community is a community of people with their home gardens,
Right.
some bigger than others, various sizes. We have Miss Selena Pear here from Cuba, one of my neighbors. She asked, she was commenting that she can add mulch to the soil with lettuce, as you mentioned.
Yes,
She was saying that while,
yes.
yeah.
So
Uh,
remember I mentioned that you can use all the parts of your um produce from home. So like you can,
yeah,
like I was saying, you can use your potato skin, your pumpkin skin to not just make mulch, but you can also make a compost with it as well.
yeah,
It will help your plants become more nutrient rich.
yeah. Kayleen also mentioned that in her presentation a few months ago. We have Aisha Peters here. She's from the east side, also with a nice home garden that I'm supposed to check out a while now. Her question is, she was saying, commenting that this is very informative. What about adding fertilizers such as blue corn or salt to give plants nutrients?
We can use blue corn and salts. That is a cultural practice, meaning that it is something that is passed on from generation to generation, and it is what our ancestors use in agriculture. And it is not a bad practice, but I would suggest that you don't overuse these fertilizers because, like I said, the macronutrients which is produced naturally within the soil, it is not replenished. And then with the overuse of fertilizers, we tend to lose our land, the fertility of our land, because when rain fall, it leads to erosion and degradation.
Right. Then we have Ms. Donna Mohammed. Thanks for joining us on Facebook. Good afternoon. how can I prevent my tomatoes from getting black at the bottom? Not really a soil question, but I don't know if you have the answer to that. I think she's describing bottom rot.
What's that?
I think she's describing bottom rot is getting
Bottom
on.
right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That happens sometimes with sometimes it could be a pest, it could be a fungus. So it all depends on like your agricultural practices. These things we cannot really just tell you what to do to prevent that. You'll have to look at different aspects of your plants, like soil type, for example. If um, there may be a pest within the soil, there may be overuse of something that could result in a lot of microbial activities within the soil. So, however, I can do a little bit more research on that and get back to her. But
Sure.
that is something common in tomato plants as well. And yeah, I'll look further into it and I'll relay it to you, Kyle, and you can send over the information to her. To her.
I will. I also have here, I'm not sure if this will help answer the question. I had a lot of pests due to the heavier than normal dry season. When I say
Mm-hmm.
heavier, wetter than usual dry season. So my soil type is, because of the test that you told me about, identify that this is clay.
Right.
You might need, oh, always missing the camera.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm seeing it. Yes.
Yeah. So you might see the red color that you showed, but if you break the soil up, it
Yes.
definitely sticks together. Right. So one thing I was learning about clay, this goes especially for Donna. This might be one issue. What was happening, Kevin? I was putting plastic pots on the bare soil. Not intentionally, it was actually on top of grass, but because of the weight of the pot, well, not the pot, but the plant in the pot, the grass was no longer growing under, so it was on bare soil. And
Right.
what you mentioned is that the water would collect on the surface of clay soil and not go down because it's not porous like sand, right?
Right. Correct. Yes.
So when the sun came out, there was heat on the soil, but do you remember it was keeping moist and it was trapped between the moisture was trapped between the base of the pot and the surface of the soil.
Right.
So that created the ideal environment for fungus and pests to grow, especially fungus, because they require moisture and heat to survive. So when I
Yes.
removed the pots, I saw that it was still wet, and I saw there was ants, and the ants were carrying around little eggs, like white eggs. Not sure what it
Right.
was, but when I removed that and the sun dried up, the of course, you know, get rid of the ants using things like neem or other pesticides. Then my plants, without even doing much, I just cut off the leaves that were attacked by the fungus or affected by the fungus. And, you know, from there, my plants thrived. So that might be something we would investigate, not just plastic pots. The reason why I mentioned plastic pots, because plastic traps heat. So the
Yes.
other pots will also do the same thing. Clay, ceramic, brick. Just
Yes.
move your pots and look at the bottom. That's one step I
Right.
would say. Done.
Also, it could also be something genetic, something within the plant as well. So remember, I was mentioning there are different aspects to agriculture, not just planting a seed and waiting for it to grow. So even though we may have soil issues, we can also have issues within the seeds. We don't know where the agri shops are getting these supplies from. And in some cases, sometimes you would notice that you would buy a plant, let's say a flower plant, for example, and it will flower one time, and after that, it may not flower again.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the reason for that is because of the genetic structure of the plant itself, the seeds. This is, you know, it happens sometimes. So you have to look at not just the soil and not just the nutrients that you're providing for the plants, but the plant as an entirety.
Yeah. So we have another question from Ruth Young, always joining us. I think that's Dr. Young. So she asked or commented, so is this why the peat around the barataria fly over? And I know you're from South Carolina, I don't know if you know that. Is this
I know
why?
about it. I know
Yeah,
about
all right.
it. Yeah.
All right. Nice. So you might be able to answer this. So is this why the peat around the barataria flyover burns for so many days when it catches a fire?
Yes, because it is nutrient rich and it is something that is not you can make it naturally, But what happened is there are a lot of there's sulfur as well in soil, and a lot of people may not know about this. And the peat moss, because it is so nutrient rich, the heat of the sun could also cause it to become hot and hotter than usual. So the temperature will be very high in those types of soil as mediums.
Okay, Michelle up here again says that is expensive. I think she was commenting when you were talking about aquaponics, but I think
Yes.
yeah, it is.
It is a little bit expensive. Like I said, there are things that you can use. The most expensive thing in your aquaponic system might be the filter or the pump.
Pumps.
If you have, like, you can use materials from around your home to make a simple aquaponic system just for like plants. That would be hydroponics. But if you want to, diversify and go into hydroponics and aquaponics, which is the production of plants and fish, it might be a little bit more expensive because you may need to have more space, more materials. Your filter, if you are going to produce it in a commercial setting, meaning bigger than just your kitchen area, it would cost a little bit more.
Right, and Dr. Young chimed in once again. That sir is true. People have to understand that agriculture is a discipline of disciplines.
Yes.
Soil scientists and agronomics do work on our various football and cricket pitches. Or she's also seeing how agriculture affects the other disciplines.
Yes,
as well, such as
agriculture affects us in many ways that we do not, pay attention to, because we all have to eat. If you're an athlete, you'll have to eat certain things. If you are a musician and you depend on your voice is your instrument, you have to know what you are eating as well. So agriculture is a very nice interdisciplinary, and I'm glad that they are open-minded people about agriculture.
Definitely. Well, Dr. Young loves agriculture just as much as you, trust me. Right. Also, in terms of sports, like what grass to go on golf courses.
Yes. Turf grass. Yes.
Yeah, to get the all runs. So we have just a couple more before we log off. But I see you enjoying it. But I know your time is.
Like I was telling you, teaching is what I always wanted to do. I always wanted to share the knowledge that I have gained.
And we have two people. This will be Aisha Peters and Patricia Carbon-Smith, both endorsing or calling for that follow-up on peat and composting at home. So yeah, Aisha said I would like to know about making peat and composting at home. Patricia Carbon-Smith says that would be great. Another presentation on compost, especially compost from fruits and vegetables.
Right, home compost and like simple things that you can do around your home to help you. Yeah.
Megan Francis on Facebook or Carrington, she would like to. She just saying thank you. It was an informative session. Patricia Carbon-Smith, same thing. Very great presentation. I learned a lot. Same, she repeated it again, I guess, twice.
If it's nice, do it twice.
We have to, let's see, what about a Portugal tree that was planted for 10 years? Sorry, I lost the comment. What about a Portugal tree that was planted for 10 years, just spreading, but never bearing fruit?
Again, it could be with the soil, the nutrients not available in the soil. Remember, I was speaking about the overuse of fertilizers, of inorganic fertilizers that would prevent the soil from replenishing the natural nutrients within the soil. It can also be the tree itself, the plant, the genetic structure of the plant. Those are things we have to look at. With science and agriculture, there is no definite answer that you can get off the top of your head without doing like tests and experiments. So like I said, it could be the nutrients in the soil, it could be the plant itself.
Yeah. And that question coming in from Marian Barsi from YouTube. Anita, I think you might know her because she sounds like a fan. She says, yes, sir, you always share your knowledge. And she also said, oh yeah, home compost is important. So there's 3 people already asking for that compost session. Donna says, thank you for answering her. The question about, what was Donna's question again? Donna's question was about the bottom run from tomato. And then one last question here. How long should I leave horse? Well, I mean, I guess she implies this from Aisha again, YouTube. How long should I leave horse dung? I guess when she's saying dung. And other types of manure to cure before mixing it with your soil.
Well, I would suggest that you don't put it on its own, like put in just the horse dung manure, because it can cause root burns as well as plant burns because of the amount of nitrogen that is present, urea nitrogen. You can probably leave it to not dry out, but where it is still moist, and you can still mix it with leaf litter and like bark of trees, maybe wood shavings, those type of things, so that it would retain the moisture, but it would also provide the nutrients for the plants.
Yeah, as you brought up that day, I'm gonna share another, not soil type, but you talk about the shavings. It's from a puwi tree. All right, that's it there. Shavings, mix that with the soil there, and you're good to go.
Yep.
Can't go wrong with that. I think just line up here for all, you know, just have
I love how you prepared.
Yeah. So right, that was that. Oh, something you mentioned about this. I don't know if anyone in the community online here or Kev. I was having a conversation with another gardener, and he mentioned that the best type of manure to use is actually the dung from rabbits, because other animals like chicken and horse, as Aisha mentioned, they tend to generate heat. So when rain comes, if you use it in abundance or excess, it tends to contribute to that fungus we spoke about, especially with the bottom run with tomatoes. So he said rabbit, their dung keeps cool all the time, so it's sought after by agriculturists worldwide, I guess.
Right.
So,
and again, you have to remember that when you are using manure from animals, there's a lot of nitrates and urea within it. So even though you are just using the rabbit manure, you can still mix it with like other stuff and implement that type of technique so that you don't overuse what you are putting in the plants.
Beautiful. We just have Dr. Young chiming in with the question that was put into the Portugal tree. So maybe also the lighting available in the area might have an effect on the Portugal tree's growth without bearing. Yeah, Kev, you familiar with that lighting?
Yeah, well, a lot of factors can affect these things. Like I said, it could be the sunlight, it could be a lot of rainfall, it could be anything really. You can't just make an assumption and it's basically like if you're sick and you try to self-diagnose yourself. You have to go to do a test and all these things to figure out what is happening. It's the same thing with agriculture, because our plants are part of an ecosystem which we know because there are still microbes within the soil. There are a lot of nutrients in the soil, and everything is intertwined. So you can't just give a definite answer. You can provide suggestions or what we think may be happening within the plant, but without completely doing like a test or like having a specialist look at what is happening within the plants. We can't just simply say this is the case. In some instances we may be able to do this, but other instances it is highly impossible for us to just tell you what you can do.
Yeah, and that thing you mentioned about self-diagnosis, that's a serious thing, especially now. But as a conversation for a whole different day, we have Devi Ramnarayan coming in saying, this is very informative and educational and informative. Thank you, Sir Kevin. Sir Kevin, again, knighted in our session. We have comments coming in, but we looking to leave and people now saying, no. I get my thing read out, man. Typing the thing fast. So we have Jermaine Dinoon. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, Jermaine. The question was, no, she just commented saying a very informative session. Devi came in again. This is same thing, just a repeat. If you nice say twice. Karen, from the assistant office said, how should ashes be utilized? Backyard burn trash.
Okay. Again, that is a cultural practice. What people know about is the slash and burn practice, which a lot of farmers did in the past. But research recently has shown that, burnt materials really doesn't affect so much of the productivity in soils. So yes, it is a cultural practice, but I would suggest we use things more like, like leaf litter and like grass and these things as opposed to burn stuff, because some people may see it as beneficial, but we are still harming the environment in this way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, of course, too there for that.
Yeah.
We have Dr. Young agreeing with you with the importance of testing and considering all possible factors, saying you are very correct, sir. Anita saying again, oh, Anita, right, that makes sense. I love that. She's saying, she asks, why does the pepper leaves turn small and wrinkled?
Okay, that could be a pest. It can also be something that is happening within the soil, lack of nutrients. Um, so if you are planting pepper, let's say just for your use only, um, you'll have to check the soil type, see what nutrients are available. It's basically the same thing with all plants and agricultural issues. You have to, look at the plant as a whole. Look at the soil, the nutrients. It could be a deficiency in a nutrient. It may need um, more nitrogen, more phosphorus, or more potassium. It's a complex interdisciplinary that we have to be
Yeah,
mindful of.
yeah. I love every time you say that your smile is this big beaming smile coming from you. I really love this thing, right?
I, I like that they are asking these questions, but I also like to, like I said, pass on my knowledge, like to tell them that, yes, I am an agriculturalist, but I do not know everything off the bat. It takes a lot of research and a lot of knowledge to know what we are doing. And not just my field, any field, as a matter of fact. And thank you, Anita, for always supporting me and my sister. She's a very, very dear friend, family friend to us.
Yeah, she said that. She also said, thanks for attending to my question. Anita commenting saying that. Donna again, I thought I was a day and okay if they're catching us, but if you need to go, just hint to me that you need to go, right?
No, I have some time.
You're good? All right. Well, we here whole day then. Bring questions, people. Donna Mohammed again asked, are eggshells are eggshells and used tea bags helpful for plants?
Yes, we can use these things. Calcium is good, so again, that would help with the pH of the soil. So again, you'll have to see if the soil is too acidic or too alkaline.
Yeah.
If it is, you don't want to put. If the soil is acidic, you don't want to add something that would make it more acidic. Then it will affect the plants. If it is too alkaline, you don't want to add something that is alkaline as well, which will have a negative effect again on the plants. So again, you'll have to do like the simple soil test that I spoke about, using the baking soda and the vinegar to see which is important. And if it's lacking calcium, you can use the eggshells and the tea bags. Yes.
Lovely. And Dr. Young again says, thanks to both of you. Hey, you're welcome for adding to our collective agriculture education. Thanks, Kevin, to increasing the population's knowledge. Very good. And on that note, I think is how we're going to conclude. Mr. Kevin Bislal is currently seeking placement in a school. He's waiting placement. So this was him exhibiting his ability to teach. And not only that, but the amount of knowledge he has to impart to our younger children who want to groom into agriculture. All you know, we're trying this thing long time in our country, Trinidad and Tobago. So we need people like Kevin Bislal, Mr. Kevin Bislal, as some person call him Sir Kevin, in our schools to share this knowledge. All right, Megan Francis Carrington saying, yes, I use eggshells and tea leaves. I will have to do the soil test. Yeah, and if you just watch a video, for those who just joined us, watch a video earlier, it will be available on Facebook and YouTube. and you can see how we did the soil test, pH test, testing the different soil types, identifying the different soil types, what to grow in what soil, and exploring just a speck of this broad agricultural world. Before you plant, can you use white lime in the soil? There's a question from Ms. Pierre.
Right. Again, you have to identify the soil type, see if it is acidic or if it is alkaline. You can add this to your soil before planting. There are a lot of soil pre-treatments that we can use. So if you want to prevent fungus from growing within the soil, you can use a fungicide in the soil, till the soil, turn up the soil. You can use insecticides as well with the soil, turn it up, so that when you do start planting, the incidence of pests and diseases is reduced. So yes, you can add it, but just do not add it to the top part of the soil and leave it. You have to turn the soil.
Yes, so Renee Ramlal saying great job, Kev. Well, fans here, Kev. We had to bring you on more. And if you are using a grow box, I think that's Mrs. PF follow up on the white lime question. Same. So if you're using,
I would suggest the same thing. Yes, before you add lime or any adding agents, any wetting agents to your soil, do these simple tests to test the pH, because you don't want to make it too acidic, too alkaline. You want the best produce that you can get from your plants. So it starts off with pre-planting procedures. So you determine these things before you plant.
Right, and my go-to fungicide, I try not to use chemicals, but when I do, I use carbendazim. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, because as I just go and ask for that. Mostly put in the papers. Now getting acquainted with the agricultural terms. How did they, Kev? I was all right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
right.
Good job.
Yeah,
good job.
So that's my good too. So guys, people in the education board, Anglican, non-Anglican, it doesn't matter. We have a teacher here, and we're looking to get him placed in a school ASAP, so he could get on with the things that he loves and enrich our children with agricultural knowledge. So guys, have a great afternoon. Thank you for joining us on Facebook, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel, the Anglican Outlook YouTube channel. Don't forget to like our Facebook page, the Anglican Outlook Facebook page. So have a great afternoon. God bless and be safe.